Now, before we head on over to our visit from Chris Graves for Friday, let's talk a little bit about the right to move. This is something that I promised last night I would discuss. So I want to do this for you. I want to play for you. I think I've got it in here. I mean, I think the team does. Let me see if we've got it here. I don't know. Maybe we've got it. I'm not sure. Yeah, in fact, let me do this for you here. Yeah, Iggy and the Stooges. Anytime I want, I got a right to move, unless the technocracy says you don't, right? Ah. What a great song. Yes, Iggy and the Stooges with, again, I think that song is pretty much, you take some of the stuff by the MC5 and a couple songs by the Stooges, but that one in particular, I think those were the progenitors of punk rock. And of course, so many of the people in the British punk scene saw the Stooges play in England, and this one particular show, so many of the people who were interested in music saw that, and it changed everything for them. So let's get to this story. There are two facets of this freedom to move story that I want to describe for you. First one is the technocracy and travel. I mentioned that I'd bring this up on the program, so let me give this to you because I think you'll find this pretty interesting. This is Kuwaiti minister detained.
To continue reading from there,
Okay, stop that. Kuwaiti minister detained by globalist technocracy after refusing to provide biometrics at airport. Yeah, so he's got this. This is Majid Nawaz, does some very good reporting. He writes, this Radical Dispatch newszine below is provided free for subscribers. At the top of this post, Resistance Radio presents our Warrior Creed video audio podcast from Tuesday the 15th. This podcast can be set to either audio, visual, and so on and so forth. So if you want to check it out, please go ahead and do so. But check this out. Here we go.
Continue reading. Again, from the World Economic Forum's Twitter feed, you can see a tweet up there dated 2022, the 15-minute city concept, which implies having all necessary amenities within a short walk, bike ride, or public transit trip from one's home has been a powerful tool for urban planners. To read from the article that links to, various cities around the world have begun to embrace the 15-minute city approach. For instance, Melbourne is proposing this is, by the way, from 2022. Check if it's still in date or not. Melbourne is proposing self-contained communities with an 800-meter radius. Portland's climate action plan calls for more vibrant neighborhoods in which 90% of the residents can walk or bike to fulfill their daily needs. That part isn't actually problematic. The issue is what happens when you try and leave that 15-minute city zone. The issue isn't what within that 15-minute walk from where you live, if every amenity is available, fantastic. That's great. That sounds like a great kind of city to live in. The problem is that what comes with the package, the entire World Economic Forum package of these 15-minute city deals, when reconstructing them, is that they are smart cities. And the smart cities will be linked to your biometric data, which will be held by government on a centralized database. And if you do not comply, then it will switch off. So you won't be able to leave the 15-minute city because your money won't work outside of your 15-minute city zone.
Okay, so that's a precursor in video. So let me scroll down the screen for you and give you more, okay? So here's the first part. Kuwait deports a former minister for refusing to provide his biometric data. a new test case for the World Economic Forum's technocratic vision for 15-minute cities governed by a centralized state database with access to the combined private data of all citizens has arisen in Kuwait. Former Kuwaiti minister Shaub Mawaziri was detained at Kuwait airport for 4 days, not 4 hours, 4 days, after refusing to provide his biometric data upon entry, offering traditional legal forms of non-biometric identification instead. Mr. Muzawaziri then agreed to provide his biometric data at the airport border if the Kuwaiti government accepted 2 conditions. First, that they guarantee all citizens' data would be kept secure and private on their centralized database. And second, that they assure such data would not be used at a later date to coerce citizens into taking mandatory vaccinations. The Kuwaiti government refused Mr. Muazzari's above conditions and instead deported him from his own country after a tense 4-day standoff. Did you ever hear about this? My sister sent this to me. The Kuwaiti government also summoned and penalized all Kuwaiti citizens who expressed their support for Mr. Muazzari. The former minister summarized the situation in his own words, quote, "My being prevented from entering my country, Kuwait, and my detention is a fact that no one can deny. Upon my return to Kuwait on October 5th, on Kuwait Airways flight number KU-164 coming from Italy, I arrived in Kuwait at approximately 8:30 p.m. Immediately upon my arrival, I went to the passport counter and presented my passport to the passport officer. He refused to allow me to enter the country unless I agreed to provide my biometric fingerprints. I informed him of my refusal to have my biometric fingerprints taken. An officer came and I informed him that no one has the right to prevent me from entering my country according to Article 28 of the Kuwaiti Constitution." And he quotes it. And you know the rest. They deported him from his own country. Yeah. Okay. Now, a little closer to home, let me just show you something that Rashida Tlaib brought up. Now, this is a mixed bag. It's a coin. It has 2 sides to it. One side, I understand her worries. The other side, maybe not quite. Here we go. Rashida Tlaib accuses supermarket brand of using facial recognition for surge pricing. Well, not exactly. First, she accuses them of surge pricing. That I don't have a problem with. Second, she accuses them of getting ready to do facial recognition. Well, if you find out about that, you might not want to go to those places. Michigan Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib has called on Kroger to answer questions about its use of electronic shelving labels and facial recognition technology. The Democrat told CEO Rodney McMullen she was worried about that technology being used discriminately. Now, it's one thing for her to say this. It's another thing for her to say it as a politician with possible threats of regulation and that sort of thing. That's immoral. It should be between the customers and the company. And she said she was concerned about the potential that it could lead to prices rising for essential goods. Well, what's wrong with that? People don't want to buy those prices, those goods. If they want to describe them as essential, that's up to them. And if these people want to raise their prices so high, that will signal other people to enter the market, and there'll be more of the essential goods available, and then the price will go down. Something that one of America's largest supermarket chains has already denied would happen. So she says, quote, "Electronic shelving labels or digital price tags may result in Kroger deploying dynamic pricing for goods." That's a fine thing. What's wrong with that? Increasing the price of essential goods on shelves. She calls them essential. Why don't you let the customer decide what they want to do and stop dictating to people like some overseer based on real-time conditions? Wouldn't it be good if a store could get better real-time data? What's wrong with that? Let the customer decide if they like it, if they don't like it. If they don't like it, they can go elsewhere. And inventory. Yeah, see? And creating both confusion and hardship for my residents. Maybe, or it might actually lead to a better supply. Yeah. Tlaib also said it was her understanding that through a partnership with Microsoft, here's the bad part, Kroger was intending to place cameras at its digital displays using facial recognition to determine the gender and age of the store's customers who are captured on camera and using that information to represent them with targeted advertising on the electronic shelving labels. Now, let me just ask you, is this a person who supports passports and driver's licenses and other forms of ID? Is this a person who wants background checks for guns? Yes, she is. And yet, she gets upset when a store might take pictures of their customers. Again, I'm a little alarmed about that as well, but I think her criticism might be a bit off base. She's got a partial point, and then the rest falls apart because she's a hypocrite.